We often think about battles, with tanks and soldiers. But what if the real battleground, the most critical one, is actually invisible? What if it's our data? Imagine an invasion, not with spaceships, but like a silent digital attack, weaponizing everything we've put online. The new War of the Worlds film, the 2025 one, it actually digs into this pretty chilling idea. Our whole information infrastructure becomes the weak spot. So today, we're doing a deep dive into a real-world company, one that operates with capabilities that honestly echo some of those fears. Palantir Technologies. It's known for being secretive, this data mining giant, and it's deeply woven into our governments, businesses, and yeah, by extension, our lives. Our mission here is to really unpack Palantir, look at its complexities, where it came from, its powerful tech, the controversial ways it's used, and the big ethical questions it brings up, all based on the sources you've shared with us.
The founders were Peter Thiel, Alex Karp, Stephen Cohen, and Joe Lonsdale. This was post 9/11, so the focus was on connecting the dots, finding threats in all the noise.
Right. So starting with that very specific counterterrorism focus, funded partly by the CIA.
Yeah, this is where it gets really powerful and honestly pretty complex. Palantir mainly operates through a few key software platforms. First, there's Palantir Gotham. That's their intelligence tool. Think defense agencies, intelligence communities like the U.S., Department of Defense, militaries, counterterrorism analysts, they all use it. It's also used for something called predictive policing, which is controversial in itself.
Predictive policing.
Yeah.
Okay. And what else?
Then you've got Palantir Foundry. This one's more geared towards corporate clients and also civilian government agencies, helping them make sense of their own operational data, logistics, that sort of thing.
Cool.
And more recently, they rolled out the Palantir Artificial Intelligence Platform, or AIP.
AIP. What's that?
It's designed to integrate AI, specifically things like large language models, the tech behind ChatGPT, basically directly into their clients' private secure networks, so clients can use cutting-edge AI without sending sensitive data out to the public cloud. They've shown it being used for military operations, though the CEO, Alex Karp, insists it needs human oversight. It's not for, autonomous targeting.
Okay, so it keeps the AI processing in-house, essentially.
Exactly. But fundamentally, Palantir isn't just like a better database system. Some experts describe it as building what could be the most expansive civilian surveillance infrastructure in U.S. history. That's a direct quote from one analysis. Instead of just storing files, it pulls in real-time data from all sorts of sources, uses AI to profile behavior, spot fraud, and flag individuals or patterns that the system decides are risky. And crucially, it doesn't just track stuff. It actually makes judgments. It analyzes data to predict behavior or tag people for potential risks, fraud, crime, whatever, and that influences real-world actions.
Makes judgments.
Yeah.
Wow. That's a heavy capability. And it's not just government using this, right? You mentioned corporations.
Oh, yeah, definitely. The corporate applications show just how powerful it is for efficiency, too. Look at Airbus, for example. They used Palantir and cut the time it took to solve production errors from, I think it was 24 days down to 17, saved them hundreds of millions.
Huge savings.
Absolutely. And it shows how Palantir becomes almost like the nervous system for these big companies. It gets deeply embedded, changes how they operate. Fannie Mae used it to slash mortgage fraud detection time from months down to seconds. Yeah. And Citigroup apparently cut customer onboarding and security check times from 9 days to seconds as well.
Incredible speed ups.
And you see other big names using it: Ferrari, Credit Suisse, Merck, even Wendy's for their supply chain. There was even that story about JP Morgan where an employee apparently used an older Palantir system called Metropolis to keep tabs on coworkers.
Right. I remember hearing about that. So, okay, it's clearly effective for business optimization, catching fraud. But let's shift gears now from optimizing business to something, much more sensitive. What happens when this kind of power gets into government hands, especially for things like law enforcement or national security?
Right, and this is where the ethical debates really heat up because these uses directly touch on civil liberties. Palantir has major contracts with the U.S. government. We're talking a nearly $800 million deal with the Pentagon. They work with the CIA, DHS, and probably their most controversial client is ICE, Immigration and Customs Enforcement.
ICE, yeah. That's caused protests, hasn't it?
Definitely. They have contracts worth over $70 million with ICE. One is for their investigative case management system, the ICM. Sources say ICE considers that system mission critical for carrying out targeted raids and, well, mass deportations. So yeah, it's led to protests, people showing up outside Alex Karp's house.
Understandable reaction. What other government agencies?
Well, the IRS uses Palantir too. They have contracts to sift through taxpayer data, apparently looking for the easiest audits.
Yeah.
And there's talk, strong likelihood actually, of a future contract to build a kind of mega API for the IRS, basically a giant pipeline for all their financial data.
All of it. Wow.
Yeah. And during the pandemic, Health and Human Services, HHS, they used Palantir under contracts worth nearly $100 million. That was for managing health records, helping with vaccine distribution logistics. Also, remember Project Maven, the military AI project for analyzing drone footage.
The one Google pulled out of due to ethical concerns.
That's the one. Palantir took over from Google back in 2019. So that obviously raises big questions about, lethal autonomous weapons down the line. And like we said, the software isn't just passively tracking, it's making judgments, applying these algorithmic scores that can affect who gets benefits, who gets flagged by police or immigration.
That phrase, making judgments, that's the really chilling part, isn't it? It brings up this whole who holds the power question. Reminds me of that movie, The Book of Eli, where the same book could free people or totally control them, or, sticking with the Lord of the Rings theme, Saruman. Good wizard, goes bad, uses his power for evil. The idea of these powerful systems judging people, maybe leading to someone being jailed based on an algorithm. What if an administration with bad intentions gets control? That's terrifying.
That's precisely the fear. Alex Karp, the CEO, he argues Palantir balances national security and civil liberties, but critics, like the ACLU, for instance, they just see it as enabling mass surveillance. Full stop. Karp himself has said publicly that dropping contracts with agencies like ICE, it would basically break trust with their military partners. So they're sticking with it.
So they prioritize those relationships.
It seems so. And this tech isn't just US-based. French intelligence used it after the Paris attacks in 2015. The Danish government has a big contract for predictive counterterrorism. And in Ukraine right now, the military is using Palantir. Reports say it helped shorten the kill chain, basically. Target acquisition time boosts artillery accuracy, and they're even using it to help document potential war crimes.
Okay, so it's being used actively in conflict zones.
Very actively. And perhaps the most stark example right now involves the Israel Defense Forces,
the IDF. They have a strategic partnership with Palantir to help with war-related missions. And there are reports, pretty detailed ones, alleging the IDF is using AI systems named Lavender and Hepsor.
for this AI targeting tech.
A live laboratory? That's deeply disturbing.
It is, and Palantir's response, well, Karp says he's very comfortable being unpopular. He seems to believe controversy won't actually hurt their business, won't lose them customers. It's worth noting, though, they explicitly state they don't do business with China or Russia.
Okay. So it's incredibly controversial, clearly. But at the same time, you look at the business side, and Palantir's this financial juggernaut. Analysts are watching it super closely. What's fueling that massive growth, that valuation?
Yeah, the financial story is pretty wild. I mean, it went from being valued around $15 billion to, at points, over $300 billion in just a couple of years. That's explosive. Their U.S. commercial revenue, just that piece, is up something like 93% year over year, which is huge growth.
That'd be 3%. Wow.
Yeah. Now, okay, it trades at a really high multiple, like over 200 times next year's estimated earnings. And that makes a lot of traditional analysts scratch their heads. It sort of defies normal valuation metrics.
Seems incredibly expensive by traditional measures.
By traditional measures, yes. But then you look at other metrics some software analysts use, like the Rule of 40.
Rule of 40. Explain that.
It's pretty simple, actually. You just add the company's revenue growth percentage to its profit margin percentage. If it's over 40, that's considered healthy for a SaaS company. Palantir scores apparently 94.
94. That's extremely high.
Exactly. By that metric, some argue it's actually ridiculously cheap because it indicates such high growth and efficiency. And they have amazing free cash flow, like a 57% margin. Over half of every dollar in revenue becomes pure cash in the bank after costs.
Okay, so incredibly efficient at turning revenue into cash. But what's the strategy behind this? What gives them that edge that moat analysts talk about?
Don't churn, they expand. They end up using more of Palantir over time because it's so central. That's the moat.
That makes sense, becoming the OS for your customer. And the CEO...
Yeah. Whether it's deliberate or just his personality, it certainly gets attention. And the overall narrative is that Palantir is kind of built for bad times. It thrives when there's fear, uncertainty, unrest in the world. Its CTO has apparently said their goal is domination. They want to become the U.S. government's central operating system.
The government's operating system.
Yeah.
That loops right back to that War of the Worlds idea, doesn't it? Where the core infrastructure itself is the key battleground, or the prize.
Exactly. Palantir aims to be that infrastructure,
Right.
which makes it incredibly powerful, but for many people, also incredibly concerning.
Okay, this is a lot to take in. So, stepping back, where does all this leave us? What are the really fundamental questions that Palantir's rise forces us to confront?
Absolutely not sci-fi. There's a long history. The CIA was experimenting with mass data collection way back in the 50s, 60s, 70s. Then there was the promised software saga in the 80s. Data is being collected, who's being targeted, and why. There's real concern about these predictive models just flagging ordinary people for things like tax audits, or maybe even wrongly identifying them as definitely regulation. This is where ideas like an Internet Bill of Rights come in. People like Tim Berners-Lee, the inventor of the World Wide Web, have pushed for this. The core ideas are usually things like individuals should own and control their own data. Companies shouldn't collect it without clear consent. We should have the right to know what data the government has on us and the right to correct inaccuracies.
Like a right to delete wrong information.
Exactly. Some even propose data dividends, basically, getting paid when companies use our personal data since it clearly has value.
That's an interesting idea. Has any of this actually happened?
Well, that's the frustrating part. There's been talk about these kinds of regulations in Congress for years, but very little has actually been passed into law. Big tech lobbying is obviously a huge factor there. Meanwhile, the technology just keeps racing ahead. Peter Thiel himself said that AI, like ChatGPT passing the Turing test, that's the holy grail. He thinks AI will fundamentally rearrange the economic, cultural, political structure of our society in extremely dramatic ways. Maybe they'll offer lower-cost, experimental ways for smaller players to get some benefit eventually, but it's definitely not their main focus today.
Okay, so still mostly a big player game.
Pretty much.
Wow. What an incredible arc we've traced in this deep dive. From a name pulled out of a fantasy novel to the absolute cutting edge of AI, surveillance, and these massive shifts in global power. We've seen how this company, Palantir, born right after 9/11, named after these fictional oracles, is now shaping government policy, corporate strategy, and raising these really profound questions about privacy, control, our future.
Yeah, the core tension is just unavoidable, isn't it? On one hand, you have this technology with immense potential utility. It can solve incredibly hard problems, preventing attacks, fighting complex fraud. But on the other hand, the ethical risks, the societal risks, if it's not checked, are just immense, especially when these tools are used not just to see, but to judge individuals.
Yes, only thing that I'm worried about, punch you one of these pussy ass niggas in their mouth, then they film and they'll upload it. Suckers do anything for that clout. They'll trick you out of your position if you ain't gained up and you ain't here watching out. Internet bloggers, internet gangsters, who the snitches? I can't tell. On the dead homies and enemies podcast, the only podcast that I won't tell. But I ain't tripping, I just pay attention to my own little business and I get the smell. I'm in another state, making another plate. Big plat place on my state. A plush hotel, just counting mail. I do this shit and I do it well.